What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk in the Shop. This is episode number 2. And what I want to do with these Real Talk in the Shops, I kind of want to, I'll drop a video like at the beginning of the week, and then later on in the week, I want to drop another video kind of going a little more in depth, looking at a little more along the lines and a little more in depth on maybe stuff that I overlooked in the video the first time, or kind of diving into it a little bit deeper. So that's what I want to do this week. I dropped that video earlier in the week about punching thick grass. And punching thick grass, like I said in the video, it's a system. It really is. Your rod, your reel, your line, your hook, your weight, everything. I probably spent more time dialing this system in for punching grass than anything that I've ever tried to learn to do. You got to have everything right, because it's such a, it's so tough to get those fish out of that real thick cover. When you hook them, you got to have everything just right. And one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, and I still play around with it a lot myself, is knowing when to use what size weight. So that's what I want to talk about first. Now, when I'm talking about and thinking about punching grass, I'm actually talking about trying to go through a canopy of grass that's matted out on the top of the surface. Now, there's also, flipping submerged grass and stuff like that. We're talking about actually punching through something, going through and fishing for the fish that are underneath that mat. So when I do that, I'm using anywhere from a 3/4 to 1.5 ounces, and I've got them all right here. I use the Mustad tungsten weights. As you guys know, I talked about that in the video. They're really good. The finish on them is actually, it's not painted. It's a finish, and it's not going to go anywhere. So no matter how many fish you catch, that weight is always going to be that same exact color. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, anywhere from a 3/4, and I have used all the way up to a 2 ounce. But the ones that I use the most are a 3/4 to 1.5 ounces. Now I want to start all this by saying, this is 1.5 ounces right here. Day in and day out, probably, I would say 75% of the time, I'm going to use 1.5 ounces. And I hear people say, and this is sort of a myth that I kind of want to bust real quick. I hear people say, use as light a weight as you possibly can. To me, that's completely 100% backwards from what you really want to do. Because if I can get those fish to bite and react, and I'm getting plenty of bites on 1.5 ounces, then why would I go down to a 3/4 where I'm fighting it all day? Or why would I go down to a 1 ounce? Because in theory, throughout the day, anytime you're flipping, here's what you need to realize. The more presentations, the more drops that bait makes in a day, the more bites you're gonna get. In turn, over an 8-hour fishing day or 9-hour fishing day, if you're fishing a tournament or not fishing a tournament, that's gonna equal more fish in your live well. So the myth that I'm kind of trying to make, where people say use as light a weight as you can get by with, honestly, I think it's better to use as heavy a weight as you can get by with. Now, you guys saw in the video the other day, I started with 1.25 ounces weight. I couldn't really get through those main river mats real good, so I went up to 1.5 ounces. I caught a couple of fish, but I got back in some thinner hydrilla that was not on the main drag of the channel, and I dropped down to a 1 ounce weight, and I started getting more bites. That was that particular day. I have seen days, if you're, anybody that's flipped a lot knows, there are days when you flip in that mat, and as soon as it goes through, boom, they hit it like a ton of bricks. Those are the days where you want that 1.5 ounces. Now let me say this, you might be sitting there saying, well, if you use 1.5 ounces all the time, what you just said, why don't you go up to a 2 ounce? Here's where it kind of gets tricky. When you go from 1.5 ounces to a 2 ounce weight, you will absolutely lose more fish on a 2 ounce weight than you will on 1.5 ounces. I don't know why that is. Ask anybody who has punched grass a lot and they will tell you the same thing. It's like they get leverage when you go up to that 2 ounce weight and they come up through that mat and they sling their head around, they get so much leverage that you end up losing those fish. So be careful going up to a 2 ounce. I have seen times, I fished a tournament on Okeechobee one time. It was in December. The stuff was really, really thick, and I caught them on a 2 ounce. That's really the only tournament that I've ever done well on a 2 ounce weight. Every other time it's always been 1.5 ounces, 1 ounce, 1.25 ounces, somewhere right in there. I want to talk about a little more in-depth things than what I showed the other day. This is the typical punching setup. That's just a weight, a flipping bead, and a hook. But there are also things out there called like punching weights. Mustad makes this right here. It's made with a little collar coming down off the bottom of the weight where you can slide a skirt up on it. And I'm actually going to take this skirt off right quick so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So all I did, I just took a regular old jig skirt like that right there, and I just slid it up on that little collar of that weight. Now, when do I use something like this? When I use something like this is when I'm flipping like submerged grass that I can see under the surface to give me a little more bulk, slow my fall just a little bit. That's the only time I really use those. I'm not a huge punch skirt guy. Now, if I'm out there on a day like say on Okeechobee or the California Delta where there's huge fish, 10, 11, 12 pound fish, and I know they're feeding on great big bluegill, and I really want to bulk up my profile, then I might consider going to something like that. But day in and day out, if I'm punching, which is what we're talking about here, if I'm punching, it's going to be this setup right here. It's going to be just hook, weight, and a small little creature bait. You don't want anything real big. Think about speed craws, Z-Craw Juniors, Reaction Innovation Smalley Beavers, Reaction Innovation Sweet Beavers. There's tons of them. You could sit here and I could name them for days. There's a lot of really good baits on the market. Find one that you have confidence in and find one that's fairly thin. You don't want something that's really, really fat. You want a lot of hook exposure, a lot of hook gap when you set that hook, because what has to happen when you pull that 1.5 ounce weight through that fish's mouth, that's a pretty good size weight. I mean, it has to blow through that fish's mouth before that hook can ever start doing its job. So take that into consideration. Like I said, when I'm punching, most of the time it's 1.5 ounces. But always, 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 if you're struggling, if you're not getting a whole lot of bites, as many bites as you think you should be, or I've done this a lot of times, if you go through an area with 1.5 ounces and you've caught a few and then you want to go back through there, rig up a rod. I usually throw 60 pound vicious no fade braid. Rig up a rod with 50 pound no fade braid and a 1 ounce or 1.25 ounces. You'll be surprised how you can go back through areas and that little bit of that rate of fall change and that little bit of that line change difference, you will get you some more bites. It absolutely will. So just wanted to talk about weights a little bit. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Once you get the system down, you get the weight right, you get all that going in your favor, it's really not that hard, and it's a really, really fun way to catch them. It's a way I really enjoy. Of course, we do it a lot on the Tennessee River. It's a big deal down in Florida, but I've had success doing it in New York. They catch them in California. Anywhere where there's vegetation and it comes up in mats, doesn't even really have to be vegetation. I've heard of people catching them out of what we call sawdust mats in the backs of pockets and stuff when it floods. So anything a bass can get under, he's probably going to do it. So I hope that clears up any questions you guys might have had. Drop me some questions down below. Please subscribe to the channel. Going tomorrow to film another adventure. Not exactly sure what we're going to do quite yet. I'm thinking about maybe going crappie fishing or might do some live bait fishing. I'm not sure yet, but definitely want to do some live bait fishing on this channel because I want this to be a straight up pure fishing channel. I appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you following along. Share the video with your buddies. I'll see you next time right here, Brandon Lester Fishing.